There we go. Another week of fishing. It was a fairly nice week, to be honest, especially as we got into the weekend. I know we called for a lot of rain. It actually, for the most part, kind of held off. A little bit of spitting showers in the southern part of the state. A few things kind of teased us throughout the day today. Not much of a soaker for sure. In fact, pretty darn nice. So can't argue with that. Beautiful beginning of June. Temps are picking up. Cottonwoods are falling. You might notice that if you're fishing and your line's in the water, you're seeing some of those cottonwood trees starting to fall. You're getting that kind of that cottony feeling stuff on your fishing line. It happens. That's a good thing. Oftentimes that means the bluegills are up shallow. They're kind of spawning. A lot of activities blooming. Things are progressing just like they should here the first week of June. We've caught a whole bunch of different fish here this last week. We've been all over the place. We targeted fish Northeast Metro, Tonka, and everywhere in between, it seems like. And we found some pretty consistent patterns. A lot of panfish up shallow, mainly talking bluegill. So we're gonna hit on some bluegill stuff today. I know I've had a lot of questions this week on targeting sunfish and bluegills, that kind of stuff. Gonna dabble a little bit with the bass, talk about some things we've done, not try to beat a dead horse. Water temps this week are moving into the mid to upper 60s. We even saw teasing with 70 on a few shallow water, back slack water bays. So we are looking like mid-June patterns are right in front of us. Super exciting stuff. So we're targeting fish mostly shallow still. A lot of 2 to 7 foot range stuff. We are seeing some okay bass fishing situations in 5 to 10. A lot of these fish are post-spawn. We're catching big, long females, not full of eggs. They have already gone up, done their job. The males are guarding beds. We're seeing some fish on beds, but we're seeing a lot of vacant beds. A lot of beds where fish have already been there, already moved on. There you go. There you have it. Things are progressing in the way they should. So how we're targeting our bass before we jump into bluegills, we're still using wacky rigs. Wacky rig was king this last week, I would say. We had to really slow down. We had a lot of rain earlier in the week, a lot of wind, gained some inches of water on the lakes, and we had to slow down going right behind that. Now, as we move into the weekend, we can move things around. We were catching them again on chatterbaits, on moving baits, on all kinds of stuff. But earlier in the week, midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we had to really slow down and fish a wacky rig. I'm not going to really teach you how that works. You've seen that probably a million times. You're probably looking at me saying, Matt, don't show me another wacky rig right now. I know what that looks like. We caught them on Ned rigs. Again, not going to beat a dead horse. But one thing we caught some fish on this week that was super fun, that I wanted to quickly chat about, are your swim baits, your swim bait type stuff. And this is actually a brand new jig head from All Terrain called the Smasher. So you can see that right there. That's going to be your minnow shaped head. They come in a variety of size hooks, a variety of size of weights, and a couple different colors. And this is brand new, just came out this week. Great hook on this thing, very stout, very durable, great position of that tie-eye. I can fish this a variety of different ways. And I was pitching this one up in 2 to 6 feet of water and just slowly retrieving it back. I'm using a 7.6 heavy action rod, 14-pound fluorocarbon, and my favorite Shimano bait casting reel. And I'm just working this bait around shallow cover, slowly retrieve. Fish are whacking this. This is a really fun swim jig head, and you can put your favorite tail on the back end to catch fish. That's the brand new Smasher. You might have heard of the Smalley Smasher. It's caught a lot of fish for a lot of anglers. This is just called the Smasher. Bigger profile, bigger gauge hook, a little more meaty, larger plastic, boom. Catches a lot of fish. Caught a lot of largemouth on this. Haven't really targeted many smallies yet this year in the metro area, but I'm gonna try and fish this as well. But for the largemouth, caught a bunch of them on that. And this is a fun way to fish. You just go cast and retrieve, you just go fishing. So not to get too off on a tangent on the bass side of things, I really wanted to touch on the bluegills and how we're catching them. We're seeing them colonize up in the shallow water. That means they're spawning, they're working on their beds. I would continue to encourage you to practice selective harvest. The state, the DNR is doing a fine job focusing on our sunfish resources here in Minnesota, dropping limits on certain lakes, working on the regulations. So let's do our part to not try to keep all the biggest fish we catch, but instead let go of some of those large ones, especially if you catch them on their beds. Let them go back to do their thing, and we can have good sun fishing, bluegill fishing for years to come. But now, talking about how we catch them, I am oftentimes starting in a similar way that I fish crappies in the spring. You've seen this setup. 1/32 ounce drop TG, sassy sting'em, Mr. Twister sting'em minnow tail, and I'm using a rocket bobber about 3 feet down. Now this system, 4-pound test line, generally gets these bluegills to go. But what you're seeing with these bluegills is they're not actually feeding. They're not eating this bait. They're picking it up a lot of times and they're moving it out of the zone. So a lot of times you see that bobber pop up, slowly go down, you don't set the hook into a fish. That's because they're coming over, they're grabbing it like this, and they're swimming away and they're spitting it out. Or they're grabbing the tail and they're moving it and they're spitting it out. They're not necessarily eating this when they're on their beds and guarding them. So that's where you can see these fish are just kind of nipping it. So what I do in that situation is I might use the same jig head. I might downsize to 1/32 ounce or a 1/64 ounce jig head, and then I take and rip that minnow bait in half. Mosquitoes in here are everywhere. Welcome to mosquitoes. I think that's our state bird in Minnesota. And I put a little half a minnow on there, a little smaller profile, short biting fish. And I might switch to a Berkeley Power minnow or a Gulp Alive minnow, something to that effect, a little more scent and flavor and taste, because I got to keep it in the strike zone longer. But I'm downsizing, taking a little bit off the meat of that plastic, and I'm downsizing to get those fish to go. And if that doesn't work, I go back to my trusty 1/32, 1/64 ounce hair jig, and that oftentimes sealed the deal. I also played around with some live bait. We played around with some micro shads. We played around with some 1-inch gulp minnows. We played around with a bunch of different things like that to get these fish to go. And you just got to play around and see what these fish want. These fish are kind of kind of temperamental. So every day I'm playing with different things to figure out what they want. We also noticed that we had to downsize our float. These rocket bobbers at times, maybe we're too heavy. We had to downsize our float to a smaller float so these fish can just take it up and slowly swim away and they're not feeling any resistance. We also caught some fish on some ice jigs and Mackie plastic. So there's a variety of ways to catch these fish. And I would encourage you to fan cast until you find a pod that's aggressively targeting and aggressively eating and hitting your baits, because not every pod of fish is created equal. So great time here to catch bluegills, practice selective harvest, be mindful of that kind of stuff. You want to keep something for dinner, absolutely do that, and have a great time. So this week's going to be great. We're going to be targeting some fish in a variety of spots. I'm going to fish a couple new lakes, try to catch some smallmouth, try to catch some walleyes. We're going to make a trip up towards the Cass Lake area, see what's going on up there. I can give you some feedback on what we found in that neck of the woods too, and report back in a week in a whole handful of different things. So great time of year. Hopefully you get out for the muskie anglers and enjoy the muskie opener this weekend. I don't know how many fish were caught. I saw a few posted on social media. I did not chase any muskies this weekend, but hopefully those that got out had fun. They were safe, put some big fish inside a net, and had a good time doing that. So super excited for next week. Got to keep getting after it. I love June. It's a great time of year to fish, and I cannot believe it. We're going to be talking July 4th here in about 4 weeks. Slow down, please. There's a lot of open water left to go. So there you have it. There's our weekly report. Get out there, have some fun, be safe, and catch some fish.